Hello, my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome to my channel. And if you have been on my channel before, then you might have noticed that my setup here is a little different. Yesterday I went to film this video and I went to plug in my ring light and something happened, something got off balance and my ring light tipped over. My camera was sitting on my tripod in front of it. It took that down with it. My camera is not working now. My ring light still works. It's completely fine, but my camera will not record me. So from this point on to an undisclosed amount of time, really, I will be filming these videos on my phone. It was either that or my mom's 10-year-old video camera, and this obviously won out quality-wise. Hopefully this video turns out okay. I've been having a lot of trouble transferring video from my phone to my laptop, but hopefully this works out fine. I'm not really sure what the quality or the audio is going to look like yet. But yeah, new method of recording, new background, and we're here and we're going to talk about some books today, specifically the books that I read in March. My reading month started out not great. I've alluded to this before on my channel, but I did have a pretty big reading slump for half of this month. I read 2 books, I think, from the span of March 1st to March 15th, which when there are 10, almost all of them 500 pages books on your TBR to read, a reading slump is definitely not what you want there. That being said, I did read 8 books this month. 7 of them were from my TBR video at the beginning of the month, and I'm pretty happy with that. And the other 3 books from my March TBR video did get started too, and the 3 that did not get finished as of this video are Lord of Shadows, because it's massive and the words are small. And also Children of Blood and Bone and Truth Witch. I have about 200 pages left in each of them. That video I mentioned for next week, they will be present in that video because that is a reading vlog for those 2 books. So that should be up next week. Besides my reading slump, I did have a really good reading month. Like the kind of reading month that makes me scared for the rest of the year, because I had a lot of 5 stars this month, which is super exciting on one hand, but on the other I'm scared I used them all up now. And the first book I finished in March is An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. Okay, so this book takes place in New York, and there is an unseen world of magicians there. And every year the heads of the magical houses pick a champion to go and participate in magical duels. And whoever's champions win those battles, the heads of the houses become like the house of the magic world. We follow Sydney, we follow other characters too, but I do think Sydney's the main one. And she has a score to settle, and she has a very large power that hasn't been seen in decades in the magician world. And she is chosen as a champion for one of the houses, and this book goes from there, pretty much. I do think this might have been my first thriller. Maybe. It's the first thing that I've ever read that I was aware it was a thriller, we'll put it like that. As for my experience with it, it was pretty good. You follow a lot of different characters in here, so I got kind of mixed up because I was reading this at the same time as another book as well. So what would happen is I would put this book down, read the other one, come back, and I would forget who a bunch of people were, and I would have to like try to re-immerse myself, and that was a little difficult, but that's not this book's fault at all. Overall, I did really enjoy this book. I did think that the battles were pretty weak, like the duels between the magicians. I just kind of expected it to be more than what it was. And something that I do think was really great is that it shows a bunch of the female characters working together in kind of like a Me Too movement fashion because of something that is happening in this book that I won't spoil. I'm excited to see where this series is going. I'm really curious about that. I think this book kind of has great TV show potential. Like, just with the way it's written, I could easily see it being broken up into, like, different kinds of episodes, so that would be really fun if that would happen. And this was one of the books I read at, well, I want to call it the height of my reading slump, but as it was rising up, this was one of those books. I did enjoy myself. It just took me a little longer to get through it and get into it, and I gave this 4 stars. And the second book that I finished is Sorcery, Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. And this is a story about a girl. Her name is Elizabeth, and she grew up in a magical library where there are magical grimoires and books that turn into like beasts of sorts, and everything is just very filled with magic. One day there is an act of sabotage against her library. One of those grimoires is released onto the inhabitants of that library. Elizabeth intervenes to stop that dangerous grimoire, and she is torn from her home because of that. She is forced to turn to her enemy, the sorcerer Nathaniel Thorn, and his demon servant. and together they are brought into this giant conspiracy that impacts the land. I have a lot of things that I really love about this book. I think it made my honorable mentions section in my favorite books of all time list. The magic system was really cool and really fun, and again, it just added to the whole vibe of this book. It was very beautiful and pretty. But the thing that I think really brought this book home for me was the romance in here. Oh, I like them a lot. It is an enemies to lovers, and I do tend to like those. But yeah, they were super sweet, and the scenes that were written for them were incredibly beautiful. And I've said that word a lot. It's because this book is beautiful. Yeah, I gave this 5 stars. Here's a fun one. The next book I finished is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. And this story follows Lou. She's a witch, and she runs from her coven into a city. And in that city, she lives as a thief and in secret because in that city, witches are hunted by the witch hunters. We also follow Reed. He's a witch hunter. Him and his brethren have very strong religious beliefs about witches and that they should be eliminated and killed. One day something happens and him and Lou are forced to form a marriage, and the story goes from there. And I'll talk about the romance more in a second. We'll just start with an overall analysis of this. First and foremost, this book is absolutely ridiculous, and that could be in a good or a bad way depending on who you are. For me, it tended to go in a good way. Also, words that I thought of to describe this book would be stupid, infuriating, and absolutely hilarious. And all of that combined just led to a really, really fun reading experience. Probably the most fun I've ever had. So the romance, again, it's enemies to lovers. They are just completely polar opposites in what they believe and what their ideals are. And it was really fun to read that dynamic between them. It was also very interesting to see how far the characters came from where they were on page 1 to where they are at the end of the book. There was a lot of character development in here. I am just so invested in this series. Oh my gosh. I cannot wait for book 2. And I gave it 5 stars. So the next book I read is The Stormcrow by Kalyn Josephson. So in the kingdom of, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but this is how I pronounce it in my head, Roderi. They have these elemental crows that are very integrated into the everyday lives of the civilians there. One day their kingdom is attacked by another one. Okay, my phone just ran out of storage space, so I had to go through, transfer all of my previous videos to my laptop, and now we're back. I also forgot to turn that on. It's on now. I forget where I was in this book. Okay, so the night that her kingdom was taken over, it threw our main character Anthea into a very deep depression. Her sister is running the kingdom now. So her sister is forced to agree to this political marriage between her and the prince of the kingdom that destroyed theirs. Thea eventually discovers this crow egg, which was not expected because, again, all the crows had disappeared. So her and her sister devise a plan to hatch that egg, bring back the crows, and team up with a bunch of other empires to take down that other one. Overall, I would say I had a pretty solid time with this book. The magic system reminded me of Pokemon, which I really enjoyed witnessing in here. I'm not super attached to any of the characters in here, but I like them enough. I especially like our main character. The journey she goes through in here was very touching, and it was nice to see where she was in the beginning of the book to where she was at the end mentally. Her and her best friend also have a very good friendship together, so that was fun to see. The romance in here was not great. A little insta-lovey to me. Not a lot of time was spent on it because it's not the main focus of the book, but it's there. So I'm not like super obsessed with what happened in here, but I am really curious to see how the story continues on. I really like the world in here. Every kingdom present in this world has like a different culture and a different way of doing things, and that's really interesting to see. There's not a super lot of world building in here, but there was enough, and it was unveiled at a pace where it kept me reading because I wanted to learn more. And I wish we had gotten a little more, but I'm not mad at what we got, and hopefully in the second book things will definitely get unraveled more as the story continues. Yeah, I'm not mad at this one at all. 4 stars. And the next book was The Demon King by Cinda Chima. So times are hard for our main character Han in this book. I might be pronouncing that wrong as well. And he is a reformed thief who is trying to make a life for him and his mother and his sister. Han comes into the possession of an amulet that was used to be owned by the Demon King, who almost destroyed the world a million years prior to these events. And then we also follow Raja. She is coming up to the point where she has to find a marriage suitor. She doesn't want to get married at the moment, but her mother wants her to marry somebody who doesn't have the best views for the queendom. Basically, Han and Raja collide, and everything goes from there. I did not expect this book to be so long, so that was definitely a surprise when I picked this up and realized I had yet another almost 500 plus page book on my TBR. This book really dragged for me. It was very slow paced, and I just kept waiting for the plot to pick up, and it didn't. Not much really happened in this book. I did look at some Goodreads reviews, and they do say that this one's kind of just a setup for the rest of the series, and the rest of the series is very good. So I'll be looking forward to reading that. Raja's point of view in this book was mostly a lot of core politics, which I do tend to like, and I did enjoy it in here as well. I enjoy her character for the most part. Han, on the other hand, I'm not too attached to at all. His story was getting very interesting by the end of this book, so I'm interested to see where that goes. I picked this book up originally because I bought Flamecaster by this author, and I didn't know it was set in the same world, and whenever that happens, I do tend to want to go back and read what came before that one. So here we are. I'm expecting this series to get a lot better for me. Then maybe I'll look back on this book with fonder eyes. But for now, it's like a 2.75 stars, which is basically a 3. It's very close to just being like an average rating. If it wasn't so long, it probably would have been like a 3.5 star. My next book, and I am very excited to talk about this one, is Harleen by this author here. So this was a DC Black Label release, and that basically means it has an R rating. It is basically a Harley Quinn origin story. So previous to this, I've always enjoyed Harley's character, but I was really hyped up for this because prior to this, I was watching the Harley Quinn animated series on DC Universe, which I really enjoyed that as well. That's a super fun series if you haven't seen it. And also before that, I went and saw Birds of Prey in theaters, and I really liked that movie as well. So yeah, I was really hyped up for this, and it definitely did not disappoint me. This is such a hard book to hold up, oh my gosh. So this book just gave me everything that I wanted from it, and it extended beyond anything I could have ever dreamed for it, really. It is absolutely stunning what is in this book. The story in here was very, very good. I like the way the other Gotham rogues were incorporated into this as well, because it's not just Harley in here. Everybody kind of gets their own time to shine. The psychology that was presented and talked about in this book was also very interesting as well. This book was just absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed every second of reading it. And I don't say this lightly either, what I'm about to say, because I've had some really good reads this year. Some of them are in this very video, but I think this might be my favorite thing that I've read all year. This is definitely the front runner for at the end of the year when I do that favorite books I read this year video, or whatever I'll call it in the future. And obviously I gave this 5 stars. Okay, and the next book is The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. So this book also takes place in New York, and in the present timeline, magic has gone extinct, and all the magicians are forced to live in the shadows. And once they enter Manhattan, they're trapped there by what's called the Brink, which if that is crossed or really even come near, it starts sucking away at their magic power, which either kills them or might as well have killed them. So our main character, Esta, she is a thief. She was raised to steal magical artifacts to take down an organization called the Order, and that organization is the one who created the Brink in the first place. Esta can also manipulate time, that is her magical ability. So she has to travel back to 1902 to get this book that contains the secrets of magic and could potentially destroy the Brink before the magician can disappear with it. So this is a very intriguing story. There's a lot of twists and turns along the way. I was hooked and along for the ride from page 1 of this. I greatly enjoyed my time with this book. I also enjoyed the characters. You get a very good sense of who they all are as people. There's also a lot of like gangs and secret societies, which was really fun to read about. The romance in here was, I think I like them, but I'm not like I'm not like feeling what I usually feel when I like a couple, but they're okay. I like them more than I don't. I think if there's an average line, they're just like a little bit above it. I very much enjoyed the time travel aspect of this, although I knew I would like that because, and this is another TV show recommendation, DC's Legends of Tomorrow. It is insane and a great time. It's my favorite show, and yeah, I just said that to mention that in a video for sure. But back to the book, I definitely love this and I gave it 5 stars. And my next book is Onyx and Ivory by Mindee Arnett. And this book is about our main character, Kate. They call her Traitor Kate because her dad tried to assassinate the king. Kate was banished from the life of royalty because of that, and now she is a, what's it called? Royal courier? She also fights these deadly beasts called night drakes. They come out at night. I ran out of storage on my phone again. My angles are going to be all over the place in this video. I think I forgot to say this, but this was actually the last book I read during this month. So Kate is a wilder and her magic is forbidden in the kingdom. Kate, and this magic eventually leads her to this group of people that were massacred by night drakes but in the day, so day drakes, and they're not supposed to really exist. And the only survivor of that massacre was Prince Corwin, who Kate used to date when she was back at the royal palace. So basically her and Corwin must put their past behind them and face this new threat together. I had a pretty okay time with this book, I would say. I really like how this story takes place after a big event. Like, I feel like that big event could have been like, I don't know, a prequel or something to this book. I really like our main character, Kate, in this. She's very strong physically and with her magic, but she's also very strong mentally, and she has a lot of great ideals. And overall, I just found her to be a really great main character. My journey with Corwin was very weird. I started out liking him, like he seemed like a really nice guy. And at some point, kind of like in the middle of the book, he does something that I considered to be very out of character for him. And it's something he does towards Kate that just really rubbed me the wrong way. And it rubbed her the wrong way too. And that moment in the middle of this book that I found out of character made his character growth feel very choppy. Like, 1 second he's this person, and then he's just a completely different person. And now he's somebody else. It didn't really flow well for me. Another thing that I liked about this was that you can tell the author put a lot of thought into this world and into the magic system. This book did tend to drag hard at points for me, but that also could have just been my reading slump. I think this was the very height of my reading slump. Prior to this book, Harleen and the Last Magician were definitely helping to bring me out of that slump. But for some reason, it just hit me back full force with this one. I don't know why. I gave this like a 3.5, 3.75 stars. Okay, so that is the end of this video. This video was very difficult for me to make, or at least a lot more difficult than I'm used to. Thank you all so much for watching this video. There's going to be a question of the day up on the screen if you want to answer that. Really all I have for this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell if you want. I hope to see you here next time. Bye!